Let's get this one out first. We have a massive game on our hands Friday night in Waco, Texas. And by the way, Friday night football, college football, I'm so glad, that for a while, college football was trying to protect high school football with the Friday night lights and not really do a lot of big matchups. High school football is great. I'm sorry for those that, are conflicted about going to their son's game versus watching Baylor Auburn, but I'm going to watch Baylor Auburn because I don't have a kid and I want to watch football as many nights as possible. Massive game. Friday night, as I said, Baylor Bears, my Big 12 champions of the 2025 season, are playing host to Hugh Freeze's Auburn Tigers in what might be the biggest coaching game or the biggest game of his coaching career. As we will in every game breakdown, we're going to start with what I know I can trust from both of these teams. And for Auburn, it starts defensively. Really solid unit from last year. They returned 6 starters from 2024. Great front line, awesome secondary. And the group overall is better than last year's numbers will show because a volatile offense just put them in a bad position time in and time out. So I can trust the defense. And while I can't trust the quarterback just yet on offense, and it might take me a while to get there, I do think everything around him is really good. One of the best offensive lines in the nation, one of the most talented wide receiver rooms in the country. And those two things right there are going to be massive in this game. Baylor doesn't have a bad secondary or a bad defensive line, but Auburn has the clear talent edge in both of those matchups, receivers versus corners, offensive line versus defensive line. They need to show out. They need to get movement in the ground game so Auburn can stay two-dimensional. And you're going to need guys like Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton to make big plays on the outside. Again, things need to be as simple for Jackson Arnold to start off this year. You have to get confidence back in him as he progresses into his second season, his first one here with Auburn. So that's what I can trust from the Tigers. Now, for Baylor, I trust that this team is going to be ready to play week 1 because they return so much production from last season. Quarterback Sawyer Robertson is back for his 4th season. He's joined by the Bears' top 2 rushers, top 2 wideouts from last season, to go along with a very experienced offensive line. This will be one of the best offensive attacks in the Big 12, but they have their work cut out for them in week 1, especially up front against a talented Tiger defense. Now, defensively for the Baylors, I think the front 7 is strong. Linebacker's great. Keaton Thomas is the returning player, and they brought in 3 really talented transfers who will be starting across that linebacker room as a whole in what's a 3-4 defensive scheme. If the defensive line can open up holes for these linebackers to make plays, I think that is where Baylor can really make things tricky for Auburn because, again, if Auburn's running the football well, Jackson Arnold doesn't need to do everything. But if you're getting through and stuffing up and all of a sudden Auburn's offense is one-dimensional, that's where you want Jackson Arnold on his toes in this game. Now, that being said, getting through Auburn's offensive line is a tall task. So that's what I think I know from both teams. Let's talk about what I think I know from both of these teams. And let's stick with Baylor because while I think that momentum and continuity is on their side, there's a chance that was just because they had a lighter schedule to finish the Big 12 regular season last year. They finished the season 6-1, good bowl game against LSU, but in conference, they played against West Virginia, Houston, Oklahoma State, some of the worst teams in the conference last year. Now, it's good to stack wins, and you're not going to apologize for beating bad teams, but we'll learn quickly into this season whether or not that was a mirage if they're slow out the gate. And by the way, they're 2 tough tests in the non-conference, Auburn this week and SMU the week after. So I think I know that they have momentum. And I think I know that this continuity should have them humming like they were at the end of the year, but how much of that was just playing against lesser competition, we'll probably find out in the next couple of weeks. For Auburn, as I said, I think Jackson Arnold should be in a much better position to succeed here than he was at Oklahoma. That being said, anyone in their right mind is terrified and worried that everything he had to endure as a true freshman with the Sooners may have messed up his swagger, his confidence, And fall camp hasn't necessarily been this glowing review either for the young quarterback. So if we're sitting here at halftime Friday night and he's 5 of 12 for 42 yards and a pick, this game could easily favor the Bears in the second half and really make for some uncomfortable conversations about what needs to be done with Auburn's quarterback position moving forward. However, it could be the total opposite way. You know, Arnold could be 10 for 12, 110 passing yards, 2 scores, and all of a sudden you're sitting there like, oh shit, Auburn's found their guy. He's found his right home. They'll be a force to be reckoned with in the SEC. Any of that can happen, but at the very least, I know that he's in a better position to succeed here with the weapons outside and the offensive line in front of him. So moving along in this one, I've got a fun betting nugget. I've got a fun betting nugget for this game. So every new season has their trends, and we'll start to pick up on things to take advantage of later in the season. But heading into this game, the Bears are 5-12 at home and 7-9-1 against the spread against FBS opponents the last 3 seasons under Dave Aranda. So again, that's 5-12 outright, 7-9-1 against the spread at home against FBS opponents the last 3 seasons. This line has snip-snapped more than Michael Scott's vasectomy procedures. As of taping this, right now, I was just looking at the line. Auburn is now back as a road favorite, -2.5. Like I said, it keeps going back and forth. A couple weeks ago, it was Baylor favored after originally being Auburn. Auburn -2.5, and it's crazy to say this before they've played a snap of actual football. This is a desperation game for Hugh and his Tigers. If they do not win this one against Baylor, they could be staring down the barrel of a 2-5 start to the season. And you say, why do you say that? Well, they've got 2 tune-ups after Baylor, and then SEC play starts with Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Georgia, and Mizzou. Those 4 teams are probably at the same, if not potentially better talent level than the Tigers. So if they lose those 4, and let's even just give them one of them. Let's say they're 3-4, or that would mean they're either 2-5 or 3-4. Excuse me. This is an important one to win because it's about momentum here this year for Auburn. You can't just stack a few wins at the end of the year and be like, hey, we feel good heading into 2026. No, you need to win them early because you're not fully out of time, but people in Auburn are starting to raise their eyebrows. So while Baylor doesn't look at this game lightly, I'm not saying that it isn't a desperation game for them. I just think there's not nearly as much riding on it for the Bears. And even if they lose a close one here to Auburn, they'll still be sitting pretty in how they view themselves in the Big 12 landscape. At the end of the day, I think Auburn's trench play is going to be the difference maker here. I think the offensive line will do a great job opening up for the run game, and in doing so, keep Jackson Arnold upright, keep him calm, keep him relaxed, and I'm just going to put a little bit of faith that the pieces around him offensively, that being Jackson Arnold, can lift him up even if he's a little shaky. I don't think this is going to be one of those 35-31 final scores. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a low-scoring game. I'm going to take the under here. I'm also going to take the Tigers to win by a score of 26-17. So I'm going to take them in the end by a decent margin. I've yet to make a final decision if game is going to be on one of my best bets. We'll save that for Wednesday or Friday show just to give you guys some time on it. But I am going to take the Tigers to get the win here. I just think they're a little bit more desperate heading into it. And Baylor, they can afford to lose this one and still feel really good about themselves if it's a narrow defeat at home. So that's my preview.